It was a Tuesday morning like any other in the small, quiet suburb of Valley Springs. The sun had barely risen over the rows of well-kept homes, and I was sitting on my front porch, sipping my coffee and watching the world wake up. If you had told me that day that I'd be caught in the middle of a battle over a flag, and I'd end up in a fight for my reputation and my peace of mind, I would have laughed in your face. But that's exactly what happened. Let me tell you how it all went down. I'm Nate Walker. I've lived in Valley Springs for over 8 years. I work from home as a web developer, which means I've got a lot of time to myself. I'm not the type of guy to stir the pot. I value my privacy. I keep to myself, mind my business. And up until that fateful day, that philosophy had served me well. I never expected my simple refusal to hang a flag on my front lawn would turn my world upside down. It all started when I noticed her walking down the street. She had this determined look on her face, like she was on some kind of mission. I saw her before she saw me. A woman in her late 50s, blonde hair tied back in a messy ponytail, wearing a rainbow-colored t-shirt and beige shorts. In one hand, she was carrying a pride flag, and in the other, she held a clipboard, as if she was making some kind of official survey. Her name, as I would soon learn, was Karen Summers, though. Let's be honest, she went by Karen long before it became a meme. Karen stopped directly in front of my house. She didn't even knock. She just planted her feet on the sidewalk, put her hands on her hips, and started scanning my property. Her eyes darted from my porch to my front yard, then up to my windows. I could practically see the gears turning in her head as she took mental notes, her eyes narrowing when she noticed something. It was clear my property was flag-free. No rainbow banners, no political statements. Nothing. "Excuse me," she called out to me, her voice carrying that special brand of authority, the kind that people develop when they've never been told no in their adult lives. "Are you the homeowner here?" I put my coffee mug down, raised an eyebrow, and gave her a casual look. "I am. Can I help you with something?" She marched right up my walkway, cutting the distance between us. I could feel her energy like she had a purpose that I wasn't going to like. She stopped just short of the steps leading to my porch. "I'm Karen Summers," she said, puffing out her chest. "I'm the president of the Valley Springs Equality Group, and I'm here to talk to you about our Pride Month initiative." I wasn't even aware there was a Pride Month initiative in the neighborhood, but I tried to keep a neutral face. "I'm not sure I've heard about it," I replied. "Well, it's a community-wide thing," she said, holding up her clipboard as if it were a legal document. "Every house is supposed to display a pride flag for the entire month of June. It's about solidarity. It's about creating an inclusive environment for everyone." I glanced around. Sure enough, a few of my neighbors had rainbow flags up, but they were scattered, not every house. I was starting to get a feeling this wasn't going to go as smoothly as she thought. "That's nice of them," I said, keeping it cool. "But I don't really do flags or political symbols on my property." Karen's face immediately shifted. Her expression went from what I can only describe as a forced politeness to something that looked like disbelief. "Political symbols?" she practically shouted, taking a step closer. "This isn't political. This is about human rights. You do support equal rights for LGBTQ people, don't you?" I could feel the trap being set. It was a classic. Either you support the flag and get to live in peace, or you don't, and they'll brand you as a bigot. "I believe everyone has the right to live their lives as they see fit," I said, careful with my words. "But I prefer to keep my property neutral when it comes to displays and demonstrations." "Neutral?" Karen scoffed, raising her voice. "There's no such thing as neutral when it comes to human rights. You're either an ally, or you're part of the problem. Which one are you, Mr. Walker?" The temperature dropped like a stone, and I could feel her eyes boring into me. I stood my ground. "I'm someone who minds his own business and expects others to do the same." I could see the shift in her expression. Disgust. Pure disgust. I knew in that moment I had become her public enemy number one. "So, you're saying you won't display the flag?" she asked, her voice dripping with disdain. That's correct, I said firmly. Karen took a deep breath, as if preparing to say something grand. Even though it costs you nothing to do this, it would show your neighbors that you're not a bigot. You're just too proud to do the right thing. I stood up, a little sharper now. Ma'am, I'm not going to be manipulated into doing something I don't want to do on my own property. She stepped closer, her voice lowering to a whisper. You know what? I think you're exactly the kind of person who gives this neighborhood a bad name. A selfish, closed-minded man who can't be bothered to show basic human compassion. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. She turned on her heel and stormed off, Leah VYing me standing there, a little stunned, but mostly just pissed off. I thought it was over. But it wasn't. The next morning, I found a flyer tucked under my windshield wiper. Hate lives here, it read, in bold red letters, with an arrow pointing straight at my house. I crumpled it up and tossed it, thinking that was the end of it. But by the afternoon, I noticed the same flyers on my neighbors' cars. Karen had started a campaign. A few days later, I found my front yard toilet papered. My mailbox was covered in rainbow stickers that would surely ruin the paint when removed. And to top it off, a note was taped to my door. Last chance to do the right thing. Put up the flag or face the consequences. By now, I was beyond angry. I was frustrated. It was clear Karen wasn't going to back off. On Monday, I received a call from my friend Dave. Nate, you might want to check out the neighborhood Facebook group. Someone's spreading some serious lies about you. I logged in, and sure enough, there she was, Karen, posting photos of my house, accusing me of being a racist homophobe who was making LGBTQ some people feel unsafe in the neighborhood. It was insane. I immediately knew I had to take legal action. This wasn't just a neighborhood squabble anymore. This was defamation, harassment, and worse, it was potentially putting my safety at risk. I contacted my lawyer, Sarah Mitchell, and she immediately set up a plan. We documented everything: the flyers, the toilet papering, the online defamation. And then, we took it to the next level, a cease and desist letter. We sent it to Karen, telling her to stop the harassment or face legal consequences. It didn't go well. A few days after receiving the letter, Karen showed up at my door, red-faced, and screaming about how I was trying to intimidate her with legal threats. I started recording the conversation, just as Sarah had said me to. She yelled at me about my selfishness, my lack of compassion, and about how I was hurting the community. I didn't back down. You're free to think whatever you want, but I've already told you my position. I'm not putting up a flag. That's when Karen threatened to call the police. And sure enough, a few hours later, they showed up at my door. They listened to both sides. I showed them the recording of our conversation, the photos of the vandalism, and the evidence of Karen's escalating campaign. The officers quickly realized I was the victim in all of this. They even warned Karen about the consequences of making false police reports. But Karen wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Her harassment escalated. She spread lies through the neighborhood, started a petition against me, and even created a fake newsletter slandering me. But here's the kicker. Karen's lies would be her undoing. When we took her to court, the truth came out. Her stories didn't hold up. The judge issued a restraining order against her, and she was referred to the district attorney for criminal charges. She had crossed the line. And the final act? It was a game changer. The police caught Karen breaking the restraining order. The footage from a neighbor's security camera was undeniable. Karen was arrested for violating the order, vandalism, and making criminal threats. It was the beginning of the end for her. She had finally gone too far. The law had caught up with her, and the truth was out. I won the legal battle. I got my peace back. And the neighborhood? Well, it was finally quiet again. But let me tell you, if you think the story ended there, you'd be wrong. There was one final twist that turned everything upside down. You won't believe what came next. Trust me, this story isn't over yet. So what do you think? Was I wrong for standing my ground? Or did Karen push too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments, let's talk about it.